Good evening, everyone. This is the August 13th meeting of the Revere City Council Subcommittee, Committee of the Whole. Would everyone at this time please rise and salute the flag?
Roll call of the members. Councillor Guanasso. Here. Councillor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councillor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councillor Morbido.
Here.
Here. Councillor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councillor Patch.
Here.
Here. Councillor Powers.
Here.
Here. Councillor Rizzo. Here. Councillor Rotundo.
Present.
Here. Councillor Zambudo.
Here.
Here. And Council President Janino.
Here.
Here. Quorum of the committee is here.
Madam President,
Councillor?
one personal privilege, if I may.
Absolutely, Councillor.
As everybody knows, a week ago today, I lost my mom, 100 years old. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for their kind words of sympathy, condolences, and all the gifts and donations that were made to the Jewish war veterans in her memory. And myself and my family thank you beyond our hearts, and we thank you very much. Thank you.
At this time, I ask that we could all stand for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. So this evening, there is one item on the agenda, calendar item 18-237. Madam Clerk?
Parking operations report and the activities and internal controls report presented to the City Council by Mayor Rigo on July 23rd, 2018.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I know that this is a topic of great debate, so I just want to lay some ground rules for how we'll move the meeting forward, and then I will open it up to the councilors. So on advice of the city solicitor, before we begin, I'd like to remind the council that there's an ongoing investigation into criminal and personnel matters related to the parking operations report. So not to waste time, councilors should refrain from asking questions related to the investigation, because we know the investigation is still active and that no information will be disclosed at tonight's meeting. So going forward, if there are any councilors that have any questions pertinent to the operations report, which I'm sure many do, we can start at this end of the council and work our way down.
Point of personal privilege.
State your point, Councillor.
Who's representing the city at this point, and who's here to represent the mayor, if there's any person? Obviously, if we're going to be precluded as to our questions, I would, after speaking to council, after speaking to the DA, it's my understanding that things that are discoverable, that are exculpatory and already present, should be fair game. If anybody has a problem with that, I'd like to know right now.
Sure. This time I'll open it up to the police department and the mayor's office.
Just to be clear, Madam President, the mayor is here to represent the mayor's office.
And I believe there's some representation from the Revere Police Department. If anyone wishes to speak before we open it up to the council, sure. And we have, sure. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Sure, just to speak to Councilor Rotundo's comment about what can be discussed here. I just got off the phone with the prosecutor in this case, and he has asked that we not. Sorry about that. I have just spoken with the prosecutor involved in this case, and he has asked that we not release any information at this time pursuant to the criminal investigation.
Thank you, Lieutenant. So at this time, if any councilors have any questions regarding the report, or any residents, anyone that wishes to discuss this matter, that is why we're here this evening. So may I just get a consensus from my colleagues so I know where we're going? Councilor? No? Councilor Keefe?
Thank you, Madam President. I guess there's not going to be a lot of information that's going to be revealing tonight. But, after reading the audit and reading some of the review, I did have some questions, and I'm not sure if you can answer them, but really they're related to, because we're dealing with a few employees that are obviously not working right now, so I wanted to try and see how much specific we had with who had, or how many people had access to the potential money, keys, were they in a, if I can get a view on where they were stored, in a room, somewhere in City Hall, et cetera, and then is there any ability, or maybe the police can help with this, to review surveillance footage from the meter collections if in fact they were being done, or were they not being done? I can only imagine there's a lot of surveillance on Broadway. That would be probably an area there might be access to. So if you can help answer those questions, really, outside of that, it doesn't seem like there's going to be much else that information I can get. But
Thank you, Councilor Keefe. Mr. Mayor?
In terms of the keys, I think the most pertinent information is on page 7 of the parking review, which stated that there was no control essentially over the keys, that for a period of time they were kept in a file cabinet in the city clerk's office, in a vault. Control of the keys was lost at a certain point. They are numbered, but there's no in and out log that was maintained. There was no record of an assignment of keys ever. The keys, the locks had never been changed, and some of those meters are at least 25 years old. And there was no record of lost keys. So the internal controls, which have been changed, most importantly, that's the most important thing folks should walk away with. The internal controls that have since been changed were lacking, and they had been lacking for decades.
thank you. And on the surveillance potential?
Good evening, councilors. Councilors, there's an investigation going on, and we're not going to address all that's part of the investigation. Who had access, this is ongoing, it's serious, you can read the report, and I don't want to sugarcoat it, and we'll see where the investigation takes us. And everyone's innocent until proven guilty, and that's how we work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for being here this evening. Councilor McKenna, any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Councilor Morbido?
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a question. When looking at the deposits from this report, I noticed there was nothing reported in August, September. We implemented a smart meter program, which, under my understanding, the money would be deposited electronically. So why is it showing that there were no funds deposited if we had a smart meter program implemented around that time?
Yeah, unfortunately, at this time, we're not going to be able to answer any questions relative to that.
Councilor?
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I don't have any direct questions. All I request is the council and anybody dealing with this tonight not mention the names of the employees that are in question. And I think it's for our benefit and their benefit that no names be mentioned in any part of this discussion tonight. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Patch?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a couple of questions. At the last meeting, when the mayor brought this before us, I asked him that I was really against suspending somebody without pay unless there was actually an indictment or a crime shows that there was a crime. At this time, we don't know if there was a crime. And I also asked if they were union employees, and he said they were. And I also, I believe, I know the mayor answered that the union, he had talked to the union, and the union was all right with it. I've been told by other people that the union did not know that there was anything involved about this matter, and I still would like to know why these people are not getting paid, and they should be being paid. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Mayor?
Madam President, I'll answer the question quickly and then kind of move on, but what I said was that the union was notified, which is what we're required to do. The Human Resources Director, John Viarella, did reach out to union representation to notify them. I never said that they were agreeable to anything. I said that that we notified them. What I'll say additionally is that my administration's here to move the city forward. And we're not going to continue to go along to get along. Ultimately, I think everyone agrees that the buck stops at my desk. And I intend to make sure that we have great civic employees who care about our city and care about all of our residents. I'm certainly not going to turn a blind eye to those who are not performing their jobs to the standards that our residents deserve. Efficient, effective, engaged. These are the core values of this administration and the principles that we expect from all of our employees. The expectation, the low expectation, and the culture of low expectations ended when I took office. And it ended when we commissioned 2 audits to take a deep dive into the operations and the financial stability of the city of Revere. It ends the culture of low expectations when we remove individuals who aren't doing their job. When we put people
Point of order.
in city government on notice that we're not going to accept people not doing their job. And if you're here to work, you're going to work hard on behalf of all of the residents of the city with integrity, and you will not be paid by the city of Revere and by the residents of Revere if you're not doing your job. I am not going to be satisfied with status quo. And we continue to push each and every day to make sure that we have a workforce that is efficient, effective, and engaged. And I hope that the council understands that this report shows that we had employees that were not engaged, they were not efficient, they were not effective. And I took the proper action to address these issues.
Madam President, I don't believe the mayor answered my question. My main concern is why they were suspended without pay. That being a union guy for many years, I think that they should have got the right to be paid. If you didn't want them in the office anymore, they should have been paid, and they still should be paid today. And I'd like to know how you came to this decision.
We can certainly have a discussion about process. The fact is that a similar process is just ongoing in the city of Boston. There were 2 employees recently who were put on unpaid administrative leave due to a criminal investigation that's going on in the Boston Public Library. So this is by no means a process that I made up. It's one that I think is a best practice in any community, and one that we've applied in terms of having a criminal investigation, and one that I think sets a standard for our residents to know that they have confidence in our city, that when they're paying a meter or they're paying for anything coming to City Hall and they're using cash, that cash is going where it's supposed to go. That's what this is about. And instilling that confidence takes a number of different things to do, and one of them is dealing with personnel issues.
I still, well, I'll end my questioning, but I disagree with the mayor's decision to suspend them without pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Madam President. In light of the fact that there is an ongoing investigation, I think it's incumbent upon all of us not to mention, as Councilor Novoselsky said, any names or anything pertinent to this investigation. Let the investigatory body take its action, and whatever happens at that time will be out there for the public. But I think until then, whether in this chamber or out of this chamber, no name should be bantered about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I have several questions, and one I just heard now was Sergeant Levita just said that you spoke to the prosecutor. So there's a prosecutor involved at this point?
Yes.
And so are charges pending?
I'm not able to speak about anything about charges or anything incumbent in the investigation at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have some questions here for the mayor, and if the mayor could answer them. The first one is, I'd like to know when you were first aware of zero deposits being made in the parking meter revenue account.
We have been aware of the issues that have gone on in the city since I took office. That's why, with the City Council's support, we commissioned an audit to look into every single fund in the city of Revere. And that's why we ended up finding $2.2 million in 86 different accounts that had been dormant for decades. So the issue of the operation of the parking department was something that had been identified and was being addressed for a number of, a length of time. I mean, going back to that initial audit, it was clear that there were cash management policies that were non-existent in not only our parking department, but multiple other departments. And so it's my job to fix these problems. And that's what we're doing.
Madam President, I assume I'm going to get the same latitude as the mayor gets. So the question was, when were you, well, first, let me just preface something, because this is being thrown out there, and I think it's been thrown out there unfairly to every past administration. And that is this $2.2 million. That was nothing more than accounts that were reconciled. That was money that was in the city's bank accounts, presumably and hopefully in interest-bearing accounts, that were reconciled, old grants, things like that, that were put together. Part of it was sent back to the state, 1.4 million. The other came to the city. And I think it's very disingenuous to try to let people think that somehow you uncovered this found money. I mean, it was money that was already here in the city. And I think if you want to be forthcoming and transparent, I think that that should be said. But back to my question.
I'm not sure, did you find it? Dan, did you find that money?
The outside auditors that we spent $72,000 found it, which is fine. I mean, and I'm not disagreeing.
So did you know that money was, did you know that money was sitting in accounts?
Gentlemen.
Did I know the money was sitting in the account?
Excuse me, gentlemen.
That's not relevant to what we're talking about here right now.
Councilor Rizzo?
I just want to understand, what is the issue here?
I'm
Is it that I
speaking,
found these
Mr.
issues and
Mayor?
that we're fixing them?
No.
If we're going to hold this meeting, I expect respect from both of you towards each other. We owe it to our residents and to our own colleagues. This is not a place for disrespect. We're all adults. I expect the councilor to speak in a respectful way and his questions to be answered and the mayor to respond. Please don't interrupt each other. Please don't talk over each other. This is not the forum for that. I want our council's question answered. I want the mayor to have the opportunity to answer those questions. But if we're talking over each other, we're not going to get there. So please, gentlemen, I know that you are very distinguished professionals. Let's answer these questions, and for the respect of the city, deal with it as professionally as possible. So at this time, I'll open it up to the councilor who has the floor and allow the mayor to respond. But please, let's just answer each other respectfully.
Point of order, Madam President.
Madam
Point of order.
President, through you.
Councilor Rizzler has the floor.
I'm asking for a point of
What
order.
is your point, Councilor?
The mayor hasn't responded to a date certain, which was requested from the first question.
And the councilor has the floor to ask his questions, Councilor. So if you would allow him to speak, maybe that question could be answered. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you, Madam President. My question, the first question I had was very simple. When were you made aware of zero deposits, 18 out of 24 months, being made into the parking meter revenue account?
Okay. And as I said, we've been aware.
A date, that's all I'm looking for.
As I said, we've been aware that there are issues in city finances since I took office.
I'll take
That's
that.
why,
Okay.
That's why we commissioned the two audits that found, one of them which found $2.2 million.
Can you tell me who made you aware, seeing as you don't want to answer the date question, who made you aware of zero revenue going into the parking meter accounts?
The city auditor.
The city auditor? You're sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. You're sure that he did, but you don't know the date he did?
So what we need to focus on, I think, in this conversation is
Madam
that
President, I'm asking the questions. I never saw anything like this.
There are hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Is this a campaign speech? What are we talking about?
That have not been collected over probably at least a decade.
Point of order.
This is the issue that we're dealing with.
Point of order.
State your point, Councilor.
The mayor is not responding to the gentleman's question that was effectively and respectfully asked. You asked for this type of decorum. It is not being presented by the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Madam President,
Councilor?
Madam President, I just want to say this, okay? That was just one question. I had a bunch of them I was hoping just to get answers for, but the reason I'm asking for this question is because if this was found out previously, then an investigation should have commenced at that point and not brought out here, as a backdrop to this finding of $2.2 million and announcing it to the public about meter money that hasn't been recorded. I mean, generally what will happen, if you suspect that some sort of theft is going on, you wouldn't come out and do a press release and call the media and everything else that occurred during this last July 23rd meeting. You would order an investigation, preferably, and by the way, it's said that it's been referred to the Attorney General's office. Has it been accepted by the Attorney General's office?
So at this time, I have been in touch with members of the Attorney General's office team, as well as Suffolk County District Attorney Special Prosecutions team that involve public integrity cases. And at this time, the prosecutor assigned is out of the Suffolk County District Attorney's office.
Okay, well, I don't know if you're familiar, but the U.S. Attorney, Andrew Lelling, as recently as February 1st of this year, said that public corruption cases need the feds because sometimes it's extremely difficult for state or local level prosecutors to do those cases. So I'm just wondering why this hasn't been referred to the FBI as opposed to the district attorney's office or the attorney general's office. I don't think that makes much sense in a case like this, nor do I think it makes much sense to be up here on July 23rd talking about a case and introducing this missing parking meter money when an investigation hadn't even started. I mean, do you know the next day, July 24th, there were Revere police officers on Broadway looking for surveillance tapes. Now that obviously hadn't been done prior. So on July 23rd, you came up, the mayor came up and made this announcement that parking meter monies, revenues were missing. 18 out of 24 months had gone unnoticed. Yet we're pointing fingers all over the place. We've got 2 people on unpaid administrative leave. And an investigation, as far as I can tell, hadn't started until July 24th, because that's when we first saw Revere Police, by the way, not Attorney General's investigators, Revere Police on Broadway looking for surveillance tape. July 24th. That was the day after the July 23rd meeting. So you can understand why I have a problem, you know, trying to wrap my head around this issue. And all we do is talk about old, you know, when I took over, we professionalized. That's, that's all great. But this $72,000 that was asked for in April of 2016, and by the way, 2.5 years ago, we're coming out with a report. I don't know who was watching these auditors, but 2.5 years ago, this audit was commissioned, and now we get this information when we know that the mayor was informed that these meters, they didn't have anybody even collecting them for several months. Not even collecting them. 10 months. As far as we can tell, 18 out of 24 months, no meter revenues. And if we knew that, maybe we could have started an investigation at that point. But instead it turns into, the media frenzy that we have now, unfortunately.
Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Could you please return to your questions? We want to keep this an
Okay.
open question,
Okay.
answer forum, question, answer, and we'll continue.
Understood.
with
Madam
the
President,
council.
just to be clear, and this is straight from the report, the drop in revenue in the parking department in 2010 to 2015 leaves us to believe that shrinkage, which is a nice accounting word for stealing, was occurring in all of the years at about the same pace. That is on page 6 of the report. So this is not a 10-month issue. This isn't an 18-month issue. This is decades of mismanagement in that department. This is decades of lack of control. This is decades of being overseen. We have meters that were hand-me-down meters from Brookline. We are not a hand-me-down city. We are a big boy city. We can buy our own meters. We can run our own departments well. We can have a city balance sheet that doesn't have $2.2 million sitting in accounts for some of them up to 20 years.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor?
Thank you very much, Madam President. On July 23rd, Mr. Mayor, you stated in front of the City Council the union was in support. I heard in support. You're saying
I never
notified.
said in support.
Okay, well, we'll have to go back and check that.
I said that they were notified.
We'll have to go check that. Okay. On July 23rd, we talked about the AG's Public Corruption Unit. We don't know if it's been accepted yet, if the Attorney General's office...
There's an ongoing criminal investigation.
I'm not asking specifics about a case. I'm asking if it's been, accepted. You can't tell the City Council who it's
There's an
referred
ongoing
to?
criminal investigation.
Of course, that answer can't be given either. Okay. Couple more questions. We've had 3 different parking clerks in 3 years. Can you help explain why? I mean, if you weren't aware, understandable, you didn't see the 18 months of zero revenue, not declining revenues, but zero revenue. You didn't see that, but yet you found it necessary to appoint 3 parking clerks in 3 years. Can you explain to us why you did that?
There were 3 parking clerks appointed in the matter of a few years because the parking department was broken. And it's something that we've been working on fixing.
So then you knew there was zero revenues?
The first parking director or parking clerk was a city clerk. She stepped in for the city to manage that. Upon her taking that additional role on, there was an agreement that we would make sure that we would look for a full-time parking director. And we posted that position. We interviewed a number of people, and we got someone who did not live up to the culture of accountability. And so that person left, was separated from the city, I think nearly 7 or 8 months after taking the job. And we are now lucky to have our current parking director, who is Jim Rose, who is doing a great job in making sure that these systemic issues that have gone on for years and years and years get fixed.
Madam President, just one more question, and then I'll stop. On August 7th, 2017, you began a new parking meter pilot program. Now, I'm just curious, we had that pilot program, and I looked at the report, and there was significant amount of money in that particular month that came in. So if this was a pilot program, it would seem to me that you would, you know, where you say that you're engaged, and you use those words as engaged, and the buck stops here, it seems to me you would have looked at the results of that pilot program and said to yourself, wow, I looked at this month and I have X, but I looked back 3 or 4 months and I had 0, and then the following month, zeros again. So what type of a pilot program was this, and how involved was your administration in monitoring this? Because if we're coming out and making public statements that $90,000 is missing, okay, if we're going to make those type of public statements, then why wasn't it picked up during at least that process? When you have a pilot program there, you're supposed to be looking at what the revenues are versus old and new.
If anyone thinks that this problem is a $90,000 problem, they certainly don't get the point of this whole report.
Those are your numbers.
The fact is that there are hundreds of thousands of dollars that should have been collected in the last decade. If we simply look at the report, and it's difficult for the auditors, for the independent auditors, to really put a number on it. But as they said, it's clear that there was shrinkage, stealing, again, a nice term for it, between 2010, 11,
Point of
12,
order.
13,
Point of
14,
order.
15. It's clear.
Counselor?
Point of
There-
order.
State your point, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, what evidence do you have of theft? What legal finding do you have, sir, for those time periods?
Counselor
You're making an
Rizzo?
accusation of people that are in this room?
Counselor Rizzo?
No. He has made
He's
an
answering
accusation.
Counselor Rotundo's question.
Page 6 of the report.
That's
So-
not a legal finding, sir.
You'll have your time,
So-
Counselor.
There seems to be a disconnect, because I am more concerned. I could go on and on, Madam President, but I think I've gotten my point across. The problem as I see it, more so than missing quarters in the meters, and by the way, we don't know the numbers. You know, you're 100% right. We don't know how much the meters would have brought in, could be brought in. I mean, I know in 2012, 13, 14, 15, meters were removed, Mass General moved down, Mass General moved out, Dr. Vade moved down. They were high-volume offices. 50 parking spaces were created behind City Hall. We know all that stuff happened, and that was to benefit our residents, so we weren't hitting them with quarters every time they came into City Hall. But that's neither here nor there. My concern, more so than the quarters, is the lack of oversight, and the fact that outside auditors had to come in and realize when you get, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with these monthly revenue reports that we get that clearly states parking meter accounts.
Just point of question. I thought you said you didn't get those.
No. Look, when we look at these...
The last meeting you said you didn't get
Gentlemen,
those.
we're going into the back and forth again. We're not going to do this.
Correct.
When I looked at these, okay?
Yes or no?
These aren't these are something that as mayor you're supposed to be looking at.
Oh, I look at them. I look
You're
at them.
supposed to be
And
looking
we're
at it.
actually
You're
going
a
to change them.
You're a
We're going to change them.
You're a
Gentlemen.
full-time
We're gonna change
employee
them.
with the city.
We're going to change them so that you can see
Gentlemen.
them.
My God.
So-
Gentlemen, Counselor has the floor. The mayor can answer the questions. We're going to keep this in a
So-
respectful
just-
way.
so-
Counselor Rizzo,
so-
please ask your question so the
Thank you
mayor
very
may
much.
answer.
I'm going to close with this. If we're not watching quarters coming out of the parking meters, then what else do we have to worry about? That is my question. When 18 out of 24 months can go unnoticed by the chief executive of this city, don't point to a city councilor. You sat there for 4 years, and, you know, I don't remember anything very remarkable that you did other than criticize during those years. And by the way, you're still criticizing during your term in office. You seem very
We are
obsessed with
fixing
the last
your
4 years.
problems. We are fixing
I know.
the mess
and
that you
Tom
left.
Ambrosino's
Gentlemen.
problems
We're fixing
and
the mess that you
everything
left.
else.
We're going back
Well-
and forth about an issue that is not on the calendar. We're
Well-
discussing the report. We are not making this a personal political issue. Counselor Rotundo, Rizzo, I respect your your wish to ask these questions. I respect the mayor's time to answer them, and I respect that we should be able to have this conversation in a polite and respectful way that respects our citizens' time as well as their choice to put us up here to represent them.
I
And
understand.
the matter of it is, the way that this is happening is not respectful to anyone, especially each other. So
No,
please.
I'm trying to be respectful. It started with my first question that I couldn't get an answer to. Like I say, I'm going to close with that. You know, I don't like the way that this has been handled from the beginning. If there was suspicion of wrongdoing, it should not have been broadcast here to the city council. And, you know, I hope for the benefit of the taxpayers whose budget is up close to $40 million in just 2.5 years, I hope for their sake that if they have to be concerned about money missing from the parking meters and why that wasn't noticed before outside auditors came in, I hope there's nothing else that they need to be concerned about. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Madam President, just a couple of points. One is that the investigation commenced prior to any public statements. I want the residents to be clear that our conversations with law enforcement, including the Revere Police Department, were ongoing through the parking review. That's one. Two, in terms of the drops in revenue that the city had seen, as I said, over 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, there were meters that came offline. But as it says in the report, again, the meters that came offline and the changes that occurred during that time in the city do not explain the totality of the significant drops in deposits, and they do not explain why there was shrinkage over that period of time. And finally, I'll say that this is about our residents having confidence. And there are a number of other departments that accept cash that never had any cash management policies. We are going to fix that. They never had them. They're nowhere. So the fact is we are fixing these issues. And it's my job to instill confidence in the residents so that when they're paying something at City Hall with cash, that they know that that cash is going to the city, and they know that ultimately that that cash is going back to the services that are provided by the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. I do have a couple of statements. One, I did speak to the attorney that is representing one of the gentlemen in this issue. Much of what was said here today is almost factually untrue. More importantly, the so-called $90,000 in coins is 4,500 pounds. And to attribute that to a 70-year-old disabled man is astonishing to me. More importantly, much of what the mayor speaks about is point of cash, that issue there, lack of policies. They were pretty much provided by Melanson Heath underneath the Ambrosino and Powers and Sullivan, as well underneath the Rizzo administration. So things take time to get done, and I'm glad they're getting done. That said, I would like to ask if the mayor could answer the following questions. I have several. I would like the same levity that everybody has had prior. And Mr. Mayor, respectfully, I ask, when was the North Lot closed? And when did the revenue from the North Lot stop coming into the city?
To be clear, what the North Lot,
The North Lot is where the city of Revere had revenue taken in from the parking department, the time in which you're questioning shrinkage. So you should know this.
the North Lot is still in
It was-
operation.
Uh-huh.
And my understanding of the revenue kind of accounts that are available is that the revenue that's generated for the North Lot is separate from any other parking revenue.
My understanding is that that is at a smaller level as to comparison in the past. What numbers do you have And why wasn't it accounted in this particular model?
I can get those numbers if you'd like. The parking operation,
From 2012, sir?
the parking operation focused on the parking meters that are in the city. And the operation audit that was conducted was focused on the meters that are on Shirley Ave and on Revere Street and on Broadway. And
So this particular report here, to be clear, is strictly on the meter revenues related to coins, correct? Not the North Lot, no, not any other combined revenue. Is that a fact?
I do not believe that the auditor, and he may have, but I don't believe that he looked at the North Lot revenue or any of the.
So you don't know that as a fact?
I can find out. I
would
don't
be
understand
helpful,
that was in the scope of what he looked at.
I would hope that would be something that'd be in the scope, because that's part of the operations of the parking clerk. That's been historically the case. Madam President, through you to the prior clerk, am I not mistaken? That
mean for the North
in the
Lot?
past, the North Lot, under John Henry, used to collect the money and bring it into the clerk's office, and that used to be part of the parking clerk's revenue, if I'm not
Right, the
mistaken.
North Lot, there used to be permits made, and used to sell monthly truck permits.
Thank you. That said, I won't ask you the date in which the actual report was done. I can surmise from the actual statement within here, and you can look to page 4, and it states, on the second day of our review, we visited the parking clerk and his office manager, inquired why no coins had been deposited since July 17th. This was done on Friday, May 18th. Considering the past tense commentary of this, it states more importantly and pejoratively, it states that the inquiry took place several days prior to Friday, May 18th. May 18th on a Friday only starts in 2018, not 2017, not 2016, only 2018. So would I be correct in stating that this particular audit happened within May of 2018?
Yes.
So it did not take place any time prior to that, correct?
Nope.
Thank you for answering my question. My also, under the suspicion that the police were looking for surveillance based upon statements from Dan Rizzo, Councilor Rizzo, on 7/24, would we conclude that that be the correct date or thereabout?
I don't know that to be accurate.
Okay. I'll take that to be accurate, considering that the owner of the property was the one that told me. And I did speak to the attorney of one of the accused.
The police department can answer if they think that it's appropriate to answer when
It's discoverable information. Unless they have a subpoena on somebody, I don't think they can.
That's not my understanding.
That's fine. But based upon the property owner, I feel more than comfortable that that took place. More importantly, I've been told by the attorney who is representing one of the employees that the police did contact him on 7/26/18, which was several days after that event, and the report came out on the 9th of July. Is that correct?
I'm not going to.
Did the report come out on the July 9th?
Represent anything that a lawyer who's, working on behalf of one of the affected employees.
No, I'm asking, I'm asking if this report came out on the 9th, yes or no? I mean, it's a simple question. It's public information.
The report came out when we had sent it to the council.
So that was July 9th, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Believe so.
July 23rd, so I stand correct. Thank you. Next question, Mr. Mayor. The parking clerk after Ashley Mullick, what was his name?
Richard Wagner.
And how long was he employed by the city of Revere?
Approximately 8 months.
Is he a subject of this investigation, do we know?
I'm not answering that.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that right now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, at what point did you recognize that the receipts were missing It states here within the report, I can go to the page and title, 18 months out of the 24. However, since you've conducted this in May, I can only conclude that it had been several months prior to that. When did,
As I said, we have known that there have been issues around cash management and around the finances of the city when I took office. And that is why we commenced an audit. That is why we got the support of the city council to commence the audit that was undertaken that found $2.2 million sitting in different accounts. On top of that, it found a number of issues that we have to address and that we are addressing. This doesn't happen overnight. And this isn't, again, a 10-month, 18-month, $90,000 problem. This is a problem that stems over years, if not decades. And it's a problem that stems to maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. Whether or not we can prove any criminal activity of the hundreds of thousands of dollars of shrinkage that have happened in the parking department, I don't know. What I can tell you is that we have an independent outside auditor who took a look at this, that has never happened in this city before. The fact that we had somebody do an operational audit of this magnitude and of this size and find these kinds of issues is something that was much needed in the city, was much needed before I became mayor, and my job and our job collectively is to fix these problems. Now, you're either gonna help fix these problems or you're gonna stand in the way of fixing these problems.
Thank you. I'm glad that you have many of your department heads here today. That said, if you do recall, I was the person who asked for the state auditor to come in. I also asked for the FBI. I believe and will be asking for a motion today to have that happen. Unlike you and other people up here, I have asked for that type of accountability and got it.
Councilor, I got support from the council to do this kind of thing.
Let him finish and then you can
Please.
respond.
Thank you, Madam President. With that said, I did do that. Down at the DPW audit, $4.25 million unaccounted for, 46,000 gallons of gasoline. Well reported, FBI, state auditor involved. Matter of fact, you can go online and Google it. But that said, this isn't the issue. We're all here for accountability. And what we're asking for you is to tell us why you could not tell us a date certain as to when you recognize this. Instead, you refer back to when the auditor asked you. With that said, you also then went back and asked, I don't know how many times, to refer back to the audit itself. And I'm going to refer back to your email to me when I had asked you about the scope of the audit in June 4th, and you gave me a refresher. Matter of fact, you sent it to me via email. I still have it here. None of what you were talking about June 14, 2018, refers to anything regarding parking whatsoever.
Cash management policies. The cash management policies that we were undertaking and reviewing in that initial audit is part of the scope. If not, read the last bullet of that email. Read the last bullet of the email. Read it out loud. Read it out loud.
Perform a review of the city cash receipt policies.
Thank you.
And procedure, but nothing to do with the parking.
Because we did every department, Counselor, we did every single department in the city, because that is accountability, making sure that every single department in the city is held accountable.
Over a 24-month period in which 3/4 of the revenue is not accounted for, you don't call the FBI, you don't call the state attorney general's office, you don't call the state auditor's office when you were asked by this council to do it? Why?
We talked to the appropriate people, and we had
you should have done it the second month it happened.
Doing this work.
The second month it happened, you should have done it.
Counselor, he's trying to answer your question.
I don't know if there's a question in there.
Well, no, it's actually a statement.
Okay.
The second month that you found no revenue in an account, you should have called the FBI, the state attorney general's office, the state auditor's office. Why didn't you? You're smiling. It's not funny. It's people's money.
The fact, you're absolutely right.
You're over here smiling like a child, and I'm talking about very important issues.
This is a very important issue. And as I said, it's about the confidence of our residents. When they go and pay a meter or they go and pay for a permit, we need to make sure that that money, it goes where it's supposed to go. And that's what this audit is about. That's what fixing this is about. That's what the the additional audits that we're going to do.
want.
We are not done. We are doing more audits, and we are going to go through each department, and we're going to make sure that there are
Madam
cash
President?
management policies. We're going to make sure that people's money is being appropriately deposited, and that it goes back to the residents of the city, because that's what this is all about.
Madam
Making sure
President?
that the residents have confidence in their city government.
Thank you, Mr.
Madam
Mayor.
President,
Counselor?
thank you, Madam President. I have great concerns. I have grave concerns. It's why I had stated back then, in 2016, in February, that I suggested that we have the state auditor and the FBI do this particular audit. It is quite clear now that 2017, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, no revenue. There was no execution of law enforcement at that time. And if there was, you can say it now, it'll be discoverable sooner or later. I am asking this council right now, as a body, that we have the state auditor and the FBI investigate the full operations of this government. I have very little faith right now in what took place. We're talking well over 6 months in which no revenue was taken in by this city and nothing was done. Absolutely nothing.
That's not
That
true,
is
Counselor. We had an
that is
audit going on from
irreprehensible.
the third month that I was in office. We had an audit going on. And
The
fact
audit was
is, we are
going on, but
fixing-
not for this
we are
issue, sir.
fixing
The audit
decades-
for this was not for this issue, sir. The review took place in May. By your statement, as denoted earlier, don't deflect.
Counselor,
I'm done, Madam
we
President.
had a review done, we had an audit done 3 months into coming into office, and one of the things that we wanted to focus on was cash management policies. That is a fact. That is the last bullet of that email that I sent you. It is in the scope of the audit that was done and that was approved by the city council.
Mr. Mayor?
So that
and
is-
Counselor?
Absolutely not
So to
what
say
you
that I did
said.
nothing is completely
It's absolutely not what you said, Mr. Mayor. I
completely
brought you
ridiculous.
here.
Mr.
We are
Mayor and
fixing
Counselor?
decades of problems.
With all due respect, the
Thank you,
scope of
Madam
the audit is
President.
neither here nor there. We're here to talk about this item that's on our agenda this evening. With due respect to Counselor Zambuda, who may have questions, I'm going to open it up to him at this time.
Thank you, Madam President. I was against this meeting from the start. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think we should have had this meeting tonight. We're in the middle of an investigation. I said at the outset I was uncomfortable with the mayor putting these people on administrative leave without pay. That's a policy decision that I disagreed with, and I still disagree with it. I wish they were being paid as this investigation goes on. But I see no purpose of this meeting here tonight during an investigation, because it can only in my opinion, can only jeopardize the people who are being investigated and the integrity of the investigation. So I was against this meeting. I'm still against this meeting. I'm not going to ask any questions, except unless the mayor wants to respond to my disagreement with his putting these people on unpaid leave. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say. And I think if we have any further meetings regarding this investigation, they should be an executive session, and the parties involved should be invited. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Madam President, just to respond, I respectfully, disagree with the counselor on the policy decision that was made. As I said in my previous statements, it's my job, and the buck stops at my desk. It's my job to make sure that we have great civic employees and employees that really care about the city of Revere and care about all of our residents. And we're not going to accept a culture of low expectations. I want to close by telling the council that I am proud of the work that we've done. I'm proud of the things that we've been able to accomplish. Collectively, we have been able to return millions of dollars to our ratepayers in the form of a water and sewer rate decrease, which is much needed for our residents. We've been able to find unaccounted for money, previously unaccounted for money, with the help and support of the council who authorized the audit that my administration undertook. We found $2.2 million. Now I'm pissed that we have to give 1.4 of that back, and we only get to take 800,000 to do things like make improvements to our streets and sidewalks, which I know our ward councils would much appreciate. Or we can put that money to our seniors. We can make technology upgrades. We had to give back we have to give back $1.4 million. That's a shame. That's a tragedy. And at the end of the day, we are going through and fixing the inefficiencies and dysfunction in our departments that accept cash, and that starts with the parking department, and it's going to continue. And we're going to make sure that confidence is instilled in all of our residents when they come to City Hall and do business. Thank you.
Madam President,
Counselor?
I have a motion.
I don't know if the whole council has finished speaking yet, Counselor. Can we just
Oh,
allow
I
everyone to
apologize.
state their points and then we'll go on to that? Any other counselors have any comments? If I may. Counselor McGowan.
Thank you, Madam President. As I spoke last meeting, first of all, I feel that this shouldn't have come into the public. I really don't. I don't think we all should be sitting here. This should have been done behind closed doors. Just my feeling. The second part of this is, as Chief Guido said, you're innocent until proven guilty. And I said that my last meeting. And I just don't think that these two individuals should be suspended without pay. If you're going to suspend them, pay them. But don't suspend them without pay until they're found guilty. And that's just how I feel. So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors have any questions? May I speak from the chair? Thank you. I want to thank the council for being here this evening. As many of you know, this meeting was held because of an overwhelming response to everything that was going on in the city. And it's our duty as a city council to hold meetings when the residents and people want to discuss them. It's important that we keep in mind as a city that we're all here to do the same thing. We're all here for our residents. We may not agree on anything, or we may agree on some things, but it's incredibly important that when we're up here, we respect each other, we respect the city, and we respect our residents, because to have these very difficult conversations, it's very easy to get emotional and to get upset, but it's because we care. And I think that that's very genuine in all of us, that we do have a genuine concern and care for our residents, or else we wouldn't be here. So I want to thank my councilors and my colleagues for being here this evening, for their time and thought and attention on this matter. I want to thank the mayor and his office for being here this evening to answer our questions, and Chief Guido and his team for being here as well. These are not easy conversations to have. They're very, very difficult. But I want to make sure that we're always holding ourselves to the expectations that our residents hold us to. So thank you all for allowing that to happen. If any other questions come up, this is still on the full City Council's agenda. We are technically in a subcommittee right now. So I'll allow any other questions, and then we're leaning into Councilor Rotundo's zoning committee time at this point. But Councilor?
That's okay. I'm sure Corey can wait a little bit and other people. But I would like to present a motion to the body as a whole. More importantly, I think it's pretty much incumbent now that we do so, that we, and I'll take from the actual audit that has been presented to us, point 5 to be exact, that the state auditor and FBI be notified, and in particular, the state auditor be requested to perform a review of the city cash receipt policies and procedure throughout the city, as well as auditing each and every department. I had asked for this in the past. I think it's now time to do it. $72,000 for what we got was minimal, and if we have a return of $1.4 million, so be it. But at the end of the day, it is incumbent that we have the state auditor do this. They report directly to the Inspector General's office. They have a greater ability to deal with this in a forensic level. And I think it is quite clear now that we need that, considering that we have, at the very least, in 2017, many, many months in which we have had no reports, no legal action. And in fact, the only legal action had taken place well over 18 months afterwards. Not to do so would be a disservice to our community and would be an affront to the employees of this great city. So I ask that the Revere City Council ask the state auditor to audit each and every department accordingly.
So Councilor Rotundo, this is a subcommittee of the whole, so this roll call would be of the subcommittee, and it would be reported out to the committee of the whole during the next full city council meeting. So if you'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll, or just place it on file for the subcommittee meeting,
Clerk, call the roll, please.
and this would be of the subcommittee.
Roll call for Councilor Rotundo's motion that the state auditor be requested to audit each and every department and review said cash policies within each department. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
No.
No. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Janino?
Yes.
Yes, the motion will be forwarded to the full city council for discussion at the next.
May we take this up under reconsideration in hopes that it does not prevail?
Okay.
Subcommittee report.
Excuse my paranoia.
So that will be reported out favorably to the committee of the whole during our next full city council meeting. At this time, I don't believe there's any further business to discuss. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn. There'll be a brief recess before the next meeting.